Hi there, geometry class. We are going to do problems 1 through 10, which is the first part of your lesson. This is foundational for the other parts, so I thought I would start here, and hopefully I'll be able to do videos for all the parts, but they take me quite a while to put together, so I'm not sure I'll get the whole way through. But let's quickly go through problems 1 to 10 so that you get the foundational part of this lesson. Noah didn't seem to have trouble with 11 through 20 the same way as he had trouble with 1 through 10. So let's just try numbers 1 through 10 together here. Okay, the things to keep in mind is that the altitude is a mean proportion to the segments of the hypotenuse. The legs are mean proportions to the segment closest to it and the entire thing. So let's start. You have to figure out which letter you're going to start with first. Apparently I have two T's here, which I shouldn't have. So let's see which T shouldn't be there. This one here should not be a T. So let's get going here. This should be an R. All right, so we're going to start with the altitude. It's the mean proportion. So what I mean by mean proportion is it goes in the mean slot in a proportion. A proportion is always the means times the extremes. The one underneath, the ones in the middle right here are the means, and the ones on the outsides are the extremes. So the altitude is the mean proportion to the segments of the hypotenuse. So it's going to be mean proportion to 4 and 12. So that's how you set that up to find T. You cross multiply, you get T squared. I'm going to go very quickly with the calculations. So you get, equals 4 and 12. So we're going to get T equals, if I simplify that, 4 square root of 3. That would be 16 times 3. Square root of 16 is 4. All right, so we have our T. Now we can go on and do S. So the legs are mean proportions, so that means they go here, to the segment closest to it, which is 12, in the entire length of the hypotenuse, which will be 16. So we're going to get S squared equals 192, and if you simplify that one, you're going to get S equals 8 square root of 3. I didn't leave myself enough room. Okay, let's move on to R. So R is the mean proportion, so we put it there, it's a leg, to the side closest to it, which would be 4, over the entire thing, which is 16 again. So we get R squared equals 64, R equals 8. Quick version of these problems. They get harder, so we'll slow down as they get harder. Okay, next one, number 2. We have the altitude. Remember, the altitude is the mean proportion to the segments of the hypotenuse. If this is 5, then this is R minus 5. So let's just set that up. It's the mean proportion, so the altitude is going to go in the mean position, and it's going to be to the segments of the hypotenuse. So it's 5, and the other one is R minus 5. If we cross multiply, we get 5R minus 25 equals 100. 5R equals 125, and R equals 25. So that is that. We need other parts to this, though. So that means that if R is 25, then we know R minus 5 is 20, and we can figure out the other parts. So we can figure out, well, let's do, which other one do we need to do here? So let's just set up, let's just put T in the mean proportion spot. It's T's turn. So the closest one to T would be 20. The entire thing is 25. Cross multiply, we get T squared equals 500. T equals, if we simplify that, it's 10 square root of 5. Lots of parts in these problems are. Now we have to get S. So S gets to go in the mean proportion spot. 5 is the one closest to it on the hypotenuse. The entire thing is 25. So we get S squared equals 125. S equals the square root of 125. And that would be 5 square root of 5. So that would be S. All right, moving right along here. These are all similar, ever so slightly different. Okay, 3. We don't have a lot of numbers on 3 unless I copied something incorrectly here. We have 20 and 25. Okay, this one cranks it up just a tiny bit. Let's take the 20 because it's the only leg that we have. So we don't have an altitude or any other leg. So we're going to just throw that guy in our mean proportion spot. And then what I did was I made 1 be S, here's S, and I made R be 25 minus S. So I put these two, I put the S and the 25, whoops, no, that's not right. It's going to be the one closest to it, so it's 25 minus S, and the whole thing is 25. So if this whole thing is, if this is R and this is S, this side is going to be 25 minus this side. Now I did my cross multiplications on this guy. So when I cross multiplied, I got 625 minus 25S equals 400. And when you solve this guy, you get S equals 9. I guess you could have made this one R and this one 25 minus R. That might have been an easier way to do it. All right, so if we know that S is 9, this guy's 9, we know that the other side is going to be 25 minus 9, which would be 16. Now we can get T. T is in the mean proportion slot because it's a leg. Goes up here. The one closest to it is 9. The entire thing is 25. If you cross multiply, you get T squared equals 225. And that's a perfect square, so you get T equals 15. Okay, hopefully I'm not going too fast. You can always rewind and watch it again. All right, I lost my spot. Okay. All right, who do we have here? That's a 24, even though it doesn't look like it. So we know that this one has to be 14. This one's not so bad. We have an altitude is a mean proportion to the segments of the hypotenuse. So we have x and x. We have 14 and 10. Cross multiply, x squared equals 140. Oh, this is the one that was a picture. That's why it's easy. And you do the square root of that, and it's going to be 11.83 feet. 11.83. Okay, the next group was kind of weird if you didn't see the instructions. The instructions were on page 258, and then the problems were on, 256, and the problems were on 257. The instructions said, in a right triangle JKL, angle JKL is the right angle, and HK is perpendicular to JL. So I already drew all these in for us to make it easier. The hardest part, I think, on these is reading the problem and setting it up. So I made all my triangles the same. They're my favorite kind of triangles. All right, so I'm trying to see if I have an S or a 5 or a 4 there. I think it's an S or a 5. I think it's a 5. All right, this one's easy. Okay, we have one leg, so that's our mean proportion, x and x. The one closest to x would be 4 over the entire thing, which would be 9. So we get 36 equals x squared, and x equals 6. That one was easy. Okay, this one's another easy one. This is the altitude one. It's an altitude. An altitude is a mean proportion to the segments of the hypotenuse. This would be 12, so you just subtract 8 from 20 and get 12. So it would be 8 over 12. So x squared equals 96, and we would get x equals 4 square root of 6. I'm assuming you guys know how to do that. Okay, next board. We're moving right along today. Okay, this one has some twists and turns. You have to try to figure out x, but before you can figure out x, we need to figure out one of these guys, either him or him. So we're going to make 18 the mean proportion because it's the only leg that we know. We don't know an altitude, so he's got to go in there. Here's the tricky part for this guy. We're going to have to pick a letter for these, so we'll just make this y, and this would be 27 minus y. Right? That's how they divide up. If you added them together, y plus 27 minus y, you get 27. So it's going to be 18. I think I did it the hard way again. 18 over 27 minus y over the entire thing, which is 27. We could have put the y here and the 27 minus y over there, but I didn't do it that way. So, and I have all my calculations done. So we have 324 minus 27y equals let's see, 18 times 18 is 324. Whoops, I already got the 324. Let me try this again. 18 times 18 is 324. Now we cross multiply. 27 times 27 is 729 minus 27y. And if we subtract and work all that around, we're going to get r equals 15. Believe it or not, it works out very nicely. Okay. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for x. So if r is, and why do I have r? I meant to have y. Y equals 15. So this would be 15. So we can set up our mean proportion for our other leg. So it's x and x. The closest guy is 15. The entire thing is 27. Cross multiply, we get x squared equals 405. And we get x equals 9 square root of 5. That took a little maneuvering to figure that out. I think I had to do a factor tree for that. Okay, next one. Where are we going to go? Well, let's see. We can make this, this distance, the whole thing is x plus 21, right? So we have a leg, so that's going to be our mean proportion guy. So it's going to be 14 and 14. The closest guy is x. The entire thing is x plus 21. This one gets a little tricky. We're starting to move into some algebra 2 here. So we get x squared plus 21x equals 196. It's quadratic because it's to the second degree, so we have to set it equal to 0. We factor this guy, which is kind of difficult to factor that. You have to think of a lot of different combinations. So the one that works is x plus 28, x minus 7, and so you're going to get x equals either negative 28 or 7. It can't be negative, so we cross that guy out. So x is going to equal 7. Number 9 is very similar in the way you solve it. This time, let's see what direction we're going to go. If this is 40, I'm going to call this s, and this 40 minus s. I don't know why I pick s. It's a bad variable. So we're going to use our altitude right here as our geometric mean. We're going to throw that in there, 12. 12. Remember, the altitude is the geometric mean to the segments of the hypotenuse, so it's going to be s, and then 40 minus s. When we cross multiply, again, we're going to get a quadratic equation. So we're going to get 40s minus s squared equals 144. That's terrible. We got to fix that around. So we're going to get 0 equals s squared minus 40s plus 144. And when we factor that, which was a little bit challenging again, which ends up being s minus 36, s minus 4 equals 0. So s is either 36 or 4. They want you this time to find the side that is, let me just read that, 9. Find JK, which would be the shorter leg. So if one is, we'll call this one, we'll just go with that it's 36. So this would be 4 and this would be 36. Or it could be 36 and 4. I'm just going to set it up that way. I think that's how I set it up. I don't see where I finished this problem up at. Is that all they asked for? Number 9, find JK. So this is JK. I guess I didn't finish this problem. So we would do, if this is 4 and this is 36, we're going to have x. The geometric mean is going to be x and x. And so we would have 4 and 40. So we're going to get 160 equals x squared. And we're going to get, I don't know where I did this problem, so just hold on a second. We're going to get 4 square root of 10. That's what that works out to be. Yep, x equals 4 square root of 10. All right, last one. I thought this one was probably the trickiest of all. It says the altitude is drawn on the hypotenuse of a right triangle. It divides the hypotenuse into segments such that their lengths are the ratio 1 to 4. Okay, so their lengths are a ratio 1 to 4, but they're actually giving you the real number there. So instead of just putting a 1 here and a 4 there, you have to multiply them both by x because it's a ratio. So I have x and 4x here. The length of the altitude is 8. Find the length of A, each segment of the hypotenuse. All right, so we want to find this guy and this guy. So 8 is your geometric mean, so you throw them here and here, and we have our x and our 4x are the segments of the hypotenuse. So you get 4x squared equals 64, x squared equals 16, and we get x equals 4. So we know that this one is 16, and we know that this one is 4. Now it says find the longer leg. Well, the longer leg would be opposite the longer segment, so we're going to find this guy right there. So he's going to be the geometric mean, x and x, to 16, and then the entire thing, which would be 16 plus 4 is 20. Cross multiply, we're going to get x squared equals 320, and we would get x equals, doing a factor tree and all that work, you're going to get 8 square root of 5 as your final answer. So that's the longer leg. All right, so that is it for problems 1 through 10. I will look at the rest of them and see which ones I need to make a video on. So stay tuned for the next video.